From the land of lakes, this is 10,000 Takes, brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another month as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Twin Cities sports scene. So yes, another episode of 10K Takes Television hits the airwaves, and well, when it's October, we always have plenty to get into. I mean, all the sports collide, and here in Minnesota, football is at the forefront. Gophers, bye week coming up, and they really cratered against Purdue, didn't they?
Yeah, that was a bad loss. I mean, you know, they were, 12.5-point favorites. Yeah. You're at home. You had a really nice crowd at Huntington Bank Stadium, although they got there a little late. I know you said that the people were lined up outside as you rolled in late, but that's neither here nor there. But, yeah, and they just never got it going offensively. I thought Purdue's defense played really well. And without Mo Ibrahim, that's a huge factor. Obviously, the second leading rusher in the nation, and he's not in the lineup. And according to Coach Fleck, he didn't know until right before game time. But my thought process is, okay, you knew that he had an issue. You didn't know whether he was going to play or not. I think you have to game plan differently. When you have, obviously you don't have this guy. You have to think, okay, without him in there, we got to start running some different things. And I know they like to ground and pound, but without Mo Ibrahim, he's special. Trey Potts is good. Mo Ibrahim's special.
He is special, but a year ago when Mo went down, Trey Potts came in, did very well, and then he goes down. Bryce Williams came in. They had success. So I think maybe they got cocky in their ability to, hey, whoever is back there, whoever gets the rock is going to gain yards, and it didn't work out that way. And maybe we shouldn't be surprised. The nickname for Purdue is Spoiler Makers. Mm-hmm. They knocked off Michigan State and Iowa, highly ranked teams a year ago. A few years ago, they had some more upsets. This is what they do. They come into somebody else's building and they spring an upset. So for the Gophers, though, huge opportunity missed. You could be on top of the Big Ten West, which appears to be early on mediocre.
Very mediocre.
Just like the AL Central in baseball, right?
Wait a minute. One of the teams in the AL Central won 90-plus games.
That's true. Everyone else, not so good.
Not so much.
It would be the Guardians, oh, by the way. But anyways, so now they're just back in the scrum. You have all these 1-1 teams, everybody in the division except the Badgers of all teams. They're 0-2. So they've let everybody else back in. I'm not saying a win over Purdue meant they would have won the division, but they would have had early control. It's a bad loss. There's no sugarcoating it from the Minnesota point of view.
All right. There's another part of this that bothered me from Coach Fleck's point of view. They had 3 timeouts that they never used at the end of the game. Man, I don't understand it. There were, a couple minutes to go in the game, and Purdue had taken the 10-point lead. Illinois is the next opponent, by the way. Purdue had taken the 10-point lead. I get it. And then I did it again. Purdue gets the football back, right?
Yeah.
And he just lets them run the ball, and they go home. They did not use any of their timeouts to try and get it back because you don't know what might happen if you stop them. Use your 3 timeouts, you stop them. Maybe you block the punt. Maybe you return the punt for a touchdown. You just don't know. Maybe there's a bad snap over the punter's head.
Well, you're in a 2-score scenario.
Right.
You know you have to have 2 scores to either tie it or win it. So if you can get the ball back and quickly, say, kick a field goal, then you put yourself in a position for an onside kick. Maybe you recover that and you get a touchdown, and who knows? Yeah, I agree. You know, what do they always say about rich people? You can't take it with you. Well, coaches, you can't take these timeouts with you.
Thank you.
He can't cash these in at Illinois. He won't get 6 timeouts when they play the Illini.
Really?
No, that's not how it works.
And I think you're talking about from the players and coaches' perspective. I was specifically talking about what Coach Fleck decided, and he even said so in the postgame as much when he was asked about, how he felt the game went. He said, well, even if we had won the game, I don't think we deserved it. So that tells me that he was done. He just did not he was not going to pursue it any further than they
I'm
already had.
surprised he would say that. I don't think you can coach that way. I think you always have to be battling until the final second. If anything,
I agree.
See how your team responds to the adversity. See if they fight back. You may not pull out the game and win it, but I want to see if you still have fight. And the Gophers, well, dust in the wind. They go from ranked to unranked very quickly. And now you're wondering, are they posers? I'm not going to take away from the Michigan State win. It was huge at the time, but we found out the Spartans aren't that good.
Right. Let's switch over and talk Vikings real quick here. They were in London last week, and a lot of boo-hooing all week long about, well, they just really didn't play that well. Did they really deserve to win? Man, I don't know. In the National Football League, I don't think you throw anything back, right? It's not easy to win 3 of your first 4 games. As a matter of fact, it's the first time the Vikings have done that since 2016. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I would say to the Purple Nation, don't be choosy. Don't be picky.
Boy,
the team 3-1 going into the Chicago game, it's second best record in the NFL. Okay, yeah, if you want to nitpick, beating New Orleans minus Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara and their starting quarterback, Jameis Winston, yeah, you can poke holes in that. And then, of course, knocking off Detroit when they almost lost. But they do have a win against Green Bay. Their only loss is to Philadelphia, the only undefeated team in the NFL entering Week 5. I just think the NFL is so even, Steven. There's a razor-thin margin between good, mediocre, and bad. And you take the win and you move on. Look, the Vikings haven't played their best football, but they have a good record. What happens if they do click?
Yeah.
That's a good sign, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They won a couple of games that maybe they shouldn't have because they didn't play that well. And those are games that they lost last year. Let's not forget that part.
No question. Cincinnati, Arizona, right out of the gate.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, stick around. We're going to talk more Gopher football. Darrell Thompson, the legend, will join us. 10K takes, your maroon and gold ticket.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. Maya? Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
$10,000 takes rolls along, and as we discussed last segment, big loss for the Gophers, losing to Purdue at home in front of really a good crowd at Huntington Bank Stadium, and one of those that was watching the game, calling the game on the radio, our good friend Darrell Thompson. Darrell joins us now. Darrell, as I said, not a great look for the Gophers, losing to Purdue at home in a situation where you had high expectations. In your mind, what went wrong last Saturday when they lost to the Boilermakers?
Well, a lot of things went wrong. And I think, probably the primary thing that went wrong was the self-inflicted wounds. You got to catch the ball and get an opportunity, the drop on the opening drive, the drop touchdown, some of the dropped actually interceptions, and then you also got to show up. I don't think they didn't play hard, but I think you got to show up with some vigor. You got to show up ready to play. And I think the team, by the time they got going, it's a little bit too late. You got to be going during warm-ups the night before and be focused. And I think that was the primary cause for loss, just not quite being, playing full speed. And if you're not playing full speed, you're just not going to be successful. And I feel like that's the primary reason for loss.
And all the mistakes, all the snafus in that game, Minnesota, Darrell, is still in it midway through the fourth quarter. It's 10-10. There's about 7 minutes to go. And I felt like Purdue just wanted it more. They got the 3, then they forced the Gophers to punt right away. They get the gash run for 68 yards and a touchdown followed. It just seemed like Purdue was the hungrier team.
Well, and they were, quite honestly, they were. I think, the way we took advantage of them in, West End last year, I think made a big difference. And we were a dominant team and really knocked them around. They came in here ready, angry, focused, and they lost 2 tough games, losing to Penn State and losing to Syracuse in close games. It wasn't a bad team that we played. We played a good team, and we surely could have played a lot better than we played. And I think Coach Fleck and his team are going to have their hands full going into Illinois in a week and a half.
No Mo Abraham against Purdue. Coach Fleck said in his post-game press conference that he didn't know until right before game time whether or not he was going to play. But they had to have an inkling of this, didn't they? I mean, do you think that they game planned properly for not having him?
Your game plan is similar to what they did last year. Trey Potts, and all the other backs at play. And I think it's very, very difficult to play without an All-American tailback. And he's an All-American, high caliber tailback. But when you're hurt, you're hurt. If he could play, he'd be playing. So I'm pretty sure that if that he was injured, and maybe you feel like with this week and next week he can be back to 100%. But ankles are tough. Because really, you go through a season or a life, you twist your ankle playing basketball or football, they take a good 3-4 weeks sometime to heal. So hopefully with a tremendous amount of treatment and a tremendous amount of rest, he can get back to 100% because we need him down the home stretch here.
So, Darrell, as you know, the Gophers did not pounce on an opportunity to take early control of the Big Ten West. They would have been 2-0 in the division. Instead, now Minnesota, along with 5 other teams, is 1-1. Wisconsin's 0-2, ironically. So this thing is a scrum, and they go to Illinois for their next game. And Brett Bielema has the Illini trending up, doesn't he?
He's got them more than trending up. He's got them playing very, very well. They came in here last year and beat us with our style of ball. They came in, they possessed the ball, they manhandled us up front, and they won the time of possession. So I feel like you're going there. He's ready. They'll be juiced and vibed up because they want to have their chance to get. And then especially the way. And it was interesting watching Brett Bielema talk to Paul Chryst before the game. I said, you know what? He's going to win that game. His body language completely dominated Paul Chryst. And I was telling our spotter, I was like, that game's over before it's even started. He's got him, totally whipped and lassoed, and unfortunately, he whipped him up, and they whooped their team. And unfortunately for Paul Chryst, he was let go, 2 days later.
Since you mentioned Paul Chryst in Wisconsin, Paul Chryst gets let go. We saw Nebraska change gears with Scott Frost. Give me your impression of what this actually does mid-season. It seems like in college football, it's too late, really. I mean, I'm surprised to see changes mid-season in college football. What are your thoughts?
It just is. I mean, that's a new game. I mean, they do it in basketball, they do it in football, and if you're going the wrong direction fast, it's better to cut bait and move on. So for Mickey Joseph at Nebraska and for Jim Leonard, it's an opportunity for a young coach to get an opportunity to wrap his arms around the program and get a little bit of a trial run. See if he can motivate them, see if he can get them playing hard, see if he can get a couple wins, see if he can correct some of the off-field and off-court issues that team might have, and figure out a way to move forward. So I think it's just it's always been that way, and I think it'll continue, especially since the money's getting bigger and bigger in college sports.
On the flip side, Darrell, did Paul Chryst get a fair shake? I realize they got battered at home by Illinois, and they got crushed on the road at Ohio State. But you look at what he did in Madison. I think it was, 7 bowl trips, 6 wins, 67 wins in his career with Wisconsin. I mean, the Madison newspaper on Friday said he was on Mount Badger, one of the 4 greatest Wisconsin coaches ever in football history. I just feel like, wow, they just didn't have any patience with him.
It seemed a little bit quick to me, although it felt like obviously the wheels are falling off the ship there a little bit. He might have just sometimes, especially a head coach can lose control of their organization and they don't have the momentum and the energy that they've had in the past. So it seemed a little bit quick, but who am I? I'm just a bystander here over on the the west side. That doesn't really. I care about Badger country, but not as much as I used to. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast.
Well, you cared when you had a child playing volleyball over there. That's the rumor anyway.
That's true.
Tell me about Tanner Morgan. Are you critical of the way he played on Saturday? What are your thoughts of the way he performed against Purdue? And obviously he needs to be better, but certainly it wasn't all his fault. We saw a dropped pass in the end zone as well that turned into an interception.
There are other drops as well. I think Tanner can and will play better. He's played really, really well this year. But they did a good job. I think jamming the box, not having Chris Altman-Bell as his security blanket, and then some drops early. Guys got to help him. Guys got to help him out too. You got to catch balls. You got to make difficult catches. That's why you're Division I, a high caliber athlete that has dreams and visions of playing in the NFL. NFL guys make those catches. You want to be in the NFL, make those plays, and they can. I think they'll work together with them more. And obviously, you got to catch a ball, when it's thrown to you. So it's a challenge, but I think he will step up. He'll be better. I'm not really critical of him.
Each game counts equally. But that said, the next 2 weeks on the Minnesota schedule, at Illinois, at Penn State, are these defining games perhaps for the U of M?
Absolutely. Especially with the loss to Purdue. So, these 2 next games are opportunities for us to get momentum back, especially into 2 hostile arenas. Illinois, we played there, and I kind of like it when it's quiet. It's not going to be quiet at Illinois. When it's rocking there, it's rocking. So it's going to be – he's starting to really build some momentum there. And Penn State, there's obviously one of the greatest coaches of all time in Joe Paterno to, the coach they have right now. They will be ready to rock and roll. It's one of the loudest, funnest, and classiest stadiums I've ever had the opportunity to broadcast. Stadium. And Penn State is in the Beaver Stadium is a cool venue to view, broadcast, and watch a football game in.
As you look at the West, outside of the Gophers, who do you think that the toughest challenge is going to be if the Gophers want to win this West this year?
It's so weird, with Iowa struggling. It's really up in the air right now. I think we'll know a lot more within the next 3 weeks. But right now, I honestly couldn't pick anyone. I think we need about 3 more weeks, and then we'll see, because no one's really stepped up and really grabbed the bull by the horns.
And Mo Ibrahim, hopefully we see him back against Illinois. You talk about ankle injuries. They are slow to heal. He was being mentioned as a Heisman candidate pre-Purdue. Is he still in that conversation?
Well, I think it depends how the rest of the season goes. If he comes out and rips off another, hopefully 900 or 1,000 yards, then I think he's going to be in that discussion. As obviously he already is in discussion as one of the greatest backs, but hopefully he's in that discussion as being a Heisman Trophy candidate as well.
All right, Darrell, great insight. We appreciate you spending some time with us, and hopefully you can bring home a victory from Champaign in another week or so.
Absolutely. You guys take care. Have a good night.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Darrell.
He is Darrell Thompson, the all-time leading rusher in University of Minnesota history, right here on 10,000 Takes. Stay with us.
Taxes don't have to be taxing, not with Keller Tax Service. For 20 years, Linda Keller has prepared taxes for all types of professions and businesses. She has perfected the virtual tax appointment through phone or video. With Keller Tax Service, you never leave home. Call KTS at 320-352-0013 or check out Keller Tax Service on Facebook. Take the anxiety out of taxing. Keller Tax Service, 320-352-0013 or check them out on Facebook.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
$10,000 takes, and it is time to put a ribbon and a bow on the Twins baseball season. Obviously,
This would be called an autopsy.
yeah, boy, that's for sure.
Tag their toe and send them to the morgue.
Oh boy, and that really started. I mean, for sure, the first part of September. It's really been going on for most of the second half of the season with the Twins, but I mean, September was an absolute flop for the Twins. I mean, losing those 7 out of 8 to Cleveland was a killer. They had the 3 here, and they had the 5 in Cleveland, and they lost 7 out of 8 of those games. And Cleveland goes on to win the division, by a landslide.
Yeah, that was a trampoline for the Guardians. They really proved then that they were the creme de la creme of the AL Central. And yeah, I say it is a mediocre division, but I will give your Cleveland Ball Club credit. They're not mediocre. They're good. They've impressed me and a lot of other people. We'll see how they do in the playoffs, which is, coming up. But I think for the Twins, they even had a series where they went to Kansas City and got swept when they still had, a flicker of hope.
Absolutely.
Of maybe, running down a wild card spot or even chasing Cleveland. So I don't think you can sugarcoat this at all. They limped to the finish line. I mean, they were like a lame horse who couldn't finish a race.
Shoot them. Put them out of their misery.
Off to the glue factory they go. I mean, my goodness. It's just got to be frustrating to be a Twins fan. Look, we all know they've had injuries, probably more than most teams. They've trotted out a new starting pitcher every other day, it seems like. Or somebody out of the bullpen. But you got to play through this, right? And they don't appear to be a team that grinds, that wants to fight through this kind of stuff. I feel like they are in bubble wrap, as I've said all year.
Yeah, and it shows. And when you treat your players, like you say, in bubble wrap, they tend to go down. I mean, it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy all season long, one right after the other. And sure, everybody has injuries, and we know that. But I just felt like, these scheduled days off that they have and all this nonsense.
Nap rooms.
What about Byron Buxton?
Batting practice inside the tunnel.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Right. They said that, I heard now that Byron Buxton was told if he had this, he could have had that knee surgery. They knew about it early on. He would have been out for 2 months, which means he would have been playing in August and September and perhaps October. I don't know, man. I'm just disappointed in their approach right now, and I think that has got to change.
I'm with you, and the problem is I don't think it will. I no longer fault the Twins for being coupon clippers. Their payroll is, in the middle of the pack.
Sure.
They spent a ton on Carlos Correa, previously Josh Donaldson, some other guys. But it's the way they spend their money. Do you really think in the offseason they're going to go out and sign a stud ace starting pitcher?
No.
Highly doubt it. That's not their MO. They like to patch it together with these guys who've had some success, but they're maybe on the tail end of their career. So, and I just think they need an organizational reboot on the way they approach analytics. They overdo that, in my opinion.
Really?
And the way they coddle these guys, go out and play.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you one thing. They're going to have an extra $35 million to spend if they want to keep the payroll where it is.
Carco's gone? Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
there's no way
They're going to bring in Trey Turner
back. No, they're not bringing in Trey Turner. No, I mean, they've got Royce Lewis, and I think that eventually.
Well, he had a legitimate injury.
Well, he did, and they stupidly put him in the outfield.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one thing after the next. Put him at third base or second base, but don't put him in the outfield. He runs into a wall and he's out for the year. Jiminy crickets. I just don't get it anymore. It's just, and now that's bad luck to a certain degree, but he was unfamiliar with the position, unfamiliar with where he was playing. So I think that they're going to bank on Royce Lewis. Carlos Correa is gone. They'll have money. Spend it on a pitcher. Please get a frontline pitcher. You got Joe Ryan. I think Bailey Ober has been pretty good at times. You got some guys in there.
Well, you also need to identify a closer. Now, you have to win a lot of games to get to your closer.
Yeah, but Johan Duran's been pretty good.
Yeah, well, if then make him your guy. Commit to him.
I agree.
And because we thought it was Taylor Rogers, they made a very
suspect,
mysterious deal with San Diego at the start of the season. I mean, boy, they were wheeling and dealing, no doubt about it. But, it's a team with holes. And, if everybody comes back next year and they're healthy, they'll be probably a team in contention. But I don't know if there is anything beyond that.
No. Well, as long as they keep managing via the laptop, I'm not sure they're going to win anything. All right. We're not done yet. Takes of the day coming up next right here on 10,000 Takes.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
We chug along another episode of 10K Takes Television. Final segment, that means takes of the day coming up. We'll find out if Wally's an angry American, cranky Yankee, giddy guardian. What are you this week?
Well, so what in the name of Babe Winkleman is going on in Cleveland, Ohio? No, I'm not talking about the baseball team that's making a run into the playoffs. I'm talking about a fishing tournament that was held last week where a couple of guys came in. They were a team. They came in with looked to be about 20 pounds of fish. And the tournament director, this guy named Jason Fisher, ironically, looked at the barrel and said, that looks like about 20 pounds of fish. And they put it on the scale. Turns out 34 pounds of fish. So what's going on? Well, they started taking the fish out and felt the fish, and something's hard in the stomach. So they cut the fish open, and lo and behold, they found lead weights inside of the fish. Wow. So 14 pounds of lead weights inside these fish, along with some fish fillets that they had cut up for other walleye, apparently, stuffed in there as well to try and hide the lead weights. I don't know what in the world. Anyway, it was a $29,000 first prize had they won the tournament. And they were on the verge of winning it, obviously. They would have won that $29K, but instead they are shamed out of town. Not since the days of Albert Bell stuffing cork into his bed have they had a scandal of this magnitude in Cleveland, Ohio. The cheaters, Jacob Runyon and Chase Kaminsky, were chased out of town. They'll never be asked back again.
Boy, creative cheating run amok.
Unbelievable. Stuffing a lead weight. Can you imagine if they tried to eat these things?
That just goes to show you what people will do for some cash.
Yeah, boy, I'll say.
All right, well, my take of the day, I'm going to salute a couple of cities that hosted some events recently. Let's start in Milwaukee, where they had the first NHL game in 29 years in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at Fiserv Forum, that great new venue, the home of the Bucks. Minnesota Wild blanked the Chicago Blackhawks 3-0. Now, the tickets for that game went on sale in early August, and they sold out within hours. Wow. I think the NHL should take a look at Milwaukee. How about hockey in Milwaukee? It's in the north. They get snow. They have ice. You have a rivalry down the interstate with Chicago. You have one to the west with Minnesota. Why not?
Yeah, no, I agree. Bring hockey to Milwaukee.
Yeah, let's do it.
They need something more than the Admirals there.
Exactly. Yeah, indeed. And then Monday night in Seattle, the Rain City Showcase, the NBA, which left Seattle, many years ago, and it was for the city of Seattle a gut punch, like the North Stars leaving Minnesota.
Right.
They want it back badly. They've got the brand new Climate Pledge Arena, home of the Kraken of the NHL. So they had the LA Clippers and Portland Trailblazers play, and it's just a matter of time before the association goes back to the Emerald City.
They will.
And they deserve it. That was a tremendous fan base the Supersonics had once upon a time.
Yep. That was Kevin Durant's old team.
It was. I remember going to Target Center when Kevin Durant was a rookie and watching him play for the Sonics, and then they went down to Oklahoma City, and boy, the Thunder fans were able to watch a superstar grow in front of their very eyes, along with James Harden, Russell Westbrook. They went to the finals one year.
And all three of those guys are gone and on their own, and none of them really succeeding at any level, especially as a team wise. Anyway,
gone with the wind.
Yeah, they're all three of them. I'm not too disappointed to see Mr. Durant failing in New Jersey. Or where are they now? Brooklyn, I guess.
Brooklyn, yeah.
Yeah, New Jersey.
It's a better chance of you probably wearing a Guardians cap than a Kevin Durant jersey.
Yeah. They win the World Series, we'll talk.
Oh, well, didn't play. I never thought I'd say that. All right, on that note, let's FedEx out our thank yous. One to Alex Yambrick, one to David Weld, also to Rocky and Darrell Thompson. For Wally, I'm Eric, saying so long. This is 10K Takes, your sports ticket.